Live.
We are live.
We are.
Just now.
Excellent.
What timing?
What timing. I mean, it's as impeccable as Virat Kohli in full flow, right? When the timing is spot on. So, yes, only 2 more days left for the ICC World Test Championship build-up, because from the 7th, we are going to see action. 3 p.m. IST, you're going to see India and Australia lock horns at the Kia Oval in London. First time ever that we are going to see a test match at the Oval in June.
Are we excited?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Super. I mean,
Can't wait.
Neither can I.
T20 white ball cricket is in its place, but nothing can beat the charm of
That's
red ball
true.
cricket and especially in England.
Exactly.
And especially India versus Australia.
Yep. I mean, 2 of the top teams that have come to this ICC World Test Championship cycle, and I've done a video on India's journey, like how there were so many twists and turns. You not know until the last test whether India would make it, because of 3 losses that they had away. 2 in England, 2 in South Africa.
Correct.
Yeah.
Those 4 losses ensured that it was going to be very, very tough. India has started training at the Oval along with Australia. There is going to be no PC, but on Monday and on Tuesday, I think on Tuesday you're going to see the captains speaking. So, and you'll have that photo shoot of both the captains standing with the World Test
With the mace.
Championship
Yes.
mace. Last time it was Virat Kohli and Kane Williamson.
It's called a mace, not a scepter.
No, it's a mace.
Mace.
Okay.
Yep. That mace was always you're going to play for, but at that time there was no structure.
Right.
Now you have a structure, and last time it was Kane Williamson who won. This time, whether Rohit can do it or it will be Pat Cummins, let's see. Because even in the previous BGT, Pat Cummins was there just for 1 or 2 tests.
Yeah.
The rest of it was captained by Steve Smith. But
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so Cummins is going through a bit of a personal tragedy.
yeah, lost his mother. It was a very tough time for him, and he's going to be playing a test match. And he's going to play cricket after that tragedy.
Yeah, cricket actually, because don't forget, he pulled out of the IPL.
IPL.
He, I don't think he played much county, so the entirety of his build-up has been training in England.
Yes.
Yes.
The extent of it.
That's the extent of it. And I think I jinxed the Australian cricket team when I was saying that, oh, they have the most stable playing 11 that can be. Because I had said the bowling lineup is sorted. Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins, Green, Lyon. Well, today we've had a big breaking news update that
Big.
Josh Hazelwood has been ruled out.
Yeah.
Because of a recurrence of the side strain. Remember, for the last 2 years, he's had a wretched luck with injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 side strains followed by an Achilles heel injury that ruled him out. For the India tour, side strain that restricted him just 3 games for Royal Challengers Bangalore. He was pulled out of it because of precautionary scans. Now recurrence, which means now your bowling lineup will have to depend upon 2 things. Whether you include Scott Boland, because he's had prior experience, or whether you include Michael Neser, who's been playing county cricket for Glamorgan.
Correct.
I'm putting all my money on Scott Boland.
Scott Boland, yes,
Yeah.
you tweeted, why Boland?
I think he's had, he's not a very experienced player, is he? How long has he been playing?
See, he's been playing for close to 1.5 years. He
Yeah.
did make his ODI debut though much earlier in 2016.
And
Yeah.
he's played quite a few matches against India as well, has he?
He played ODIs against India. He's played only 1 match against India.
Oh,
Test.
right.
Ashes.
But still, I think the movement that Scott Boland has, I think that's the most lethal thing about Boland. And after someone like Josh Hazelwood, your best bet could be Scott Boland, because, and we're betting on this, right? We talked about this in yesterday's dugout as well, that the Duke's ball gives you a lot of movement after a while.
Yes.
And I think that's something that Scott Boland could completely capitalize on, because that's his nature of bowling.
Right.
And that's why I think he could really trouble the top order. That's what I think. And I mean, if the surface, brings out a little bit of movement, little bit of support for the bowlers, Scott Boland could be very well your pick.
To add a bit more credence to that point, he took 6 for 7 against England
Yeah.
at Melbourne
Yes.
in conditions were surprisingly very bowler friendly. It was like England. At Hobart, where it was pink ball, same kind of swing conditions, he did take a lot of wickets there. So yeah. Boland. But what about Neser? Took 7 wickets for against Yorkshire. scored a century as well with the bat against, I think it was Surrey. Why Surrey? Because it involved Cheteshwar Pujara and Steve Smith in that same county side.
But then the stats you pointed out of Boland and then Neser, Michael Neser, you pointed out Scott Boland's international stats. While for Neser, you went for the county stats. I think that speaks.
He has played 2 tests. He played in the Ashes, he played the pink ball test. He also played against the Windies. Not had that much of success like Boland. So that's a major advantage for Scott Boland. England conditions, he could be lethal, plus he's a workhorse. Can bowl and bowl and bowl and bowl. So that will be one thing that Australia will have to shore up. Because remember, if Hazelwood comes back, Boland isn't playing. And remember, Australia not just playing 1 test. 6 weeks they are playing 5 Ashes tests.
Don't forget, the Ashes is also there. I mean, yes, I know we always look at the WTC final as a culmination. But I mean, for Australia players, it's going to be 1 eye on India and another eye on the not so distant future with the Ashes coming. So I think but again, see, that's the thing. Neser has been a bit unfortunate in the sense that he's kind of always been that backup.
Yeah.
I always and forever remember him being that backup in the test side for as long as possible. Credit to him, he's been playing county cricket, put in a few good performances, as we say. And when we see, say, Pujara's performances in county, we also get excited. I think a lot of Australian fans would be clamoring for Neser to get the nod. But if you ask me, I don't think that's a wrong answer here. But Boland gets the edge, just a very slight edge, for the simple reason that he's as close to a Hazelwood replacement as you can get.
Yes, exactly.
He'll keep bowling, he will plug one end up if nothing else. He did it in India too.
Yep.
You remember when the spinners were having success? Boland was that one pacer who was able to hold one end. Cummins struggled to do that in India.
Yes.
And I remember I went to watch the test match at Firoz Shah Kotla.
Okay.
Yes, no, I was in Delhi that time, unfortunately, so I couldn't see the Nagpur test. I wish I would have, because that was
the 2.5 day test, no?
Yeah, the Rohit century one, right? I would have loved watching that.
That was the truest pitch and the best pitch.
Ironically, that was the one pitch which you could not complain about, because once we saw Indore, we're like, you know what, Nagpur was great.
It couldn't get worse.
Exactly.
3 tests, all 2.5 days.
Correct. Yeah, but I saw Scott Boland, there was the nets going on right where I was standing, and he was bowling bullets, and that's when I thought Cameron Green was batting on the other end, and he was troubling Cameron Green, and that's where I assessed his skills from. And if you're a bowler who's troubling Cameron Green, and that too a pace bowler who Green hits out of the park, then there's something about you.
Yeah, I mean, see, Scott Boland, he had a great introduction to Test cricket. I mean, 6 was 7. That one spell ensured that 60,
at home, no less.
That 60 that Australia got all out for in Trent Bridge, it was avenged. 68 England all out for. And remember, this is pre-baseball. I think you have to define 2 eras. Okay, like in the coronavirus thing, there was a separate thing after Corona, before Corona. ACBC in that sense. Now here, pre-baseball, after baseball. So you are seeing that England side who are totally blown away by Boland. He took, I think, a total of, if I'm not mistaken, he took 15 wickets in the 3 tests that he played.
And he has some next level record at the MCG.
Superb record.
Next level.
That's why at the Oval, as you rightly said, it might come close to a Josh Hazelwood replacement, because we have got some stats regarding Josh Hazelwood. Okay, against India, 51 wickets he has.
Wow.
At a average, that average is fantastic, 26.9. But look at the statistic in England. 8 matches, 36 wickets at an average of 23.5.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not hard to understand why. I think if you're looking at the 3 bowlers who Australia have, the 3 pacers, all have very different skill sets.
Yes.
With Stark, it's always about raw pace, lethal Yorkers, and if he can get that ball to reverse at that speed, good luck. With Cummins, it's about express pace, hard lengths, and early ball movement. But what is it with Hazelwood? Who is the one bowler he was always compared to? Glenn McGrath. Why? Because he could get that ball to dance. So I think in that sense, that's why Boland, it's advantage to him. Because he comes as close as possible to being a Hazelwood replacement without being Josh Hazelwood.
And why I said it was a big breaking that Josh Hazelwood's out, because when was the last time, if you want, India were undone not by, and the best thing about Hazelwood, no banana swing, just a hint of movement. And when that hint of movement happened, what happened? India capitulated to 36 all out in Adelaide.
But that was the ping ball test.
Ping ball test, and Hazelwood took 5 wickets. That is the impact that he has.
Correct.
Hazelwood maintaining that off stump channel, outside off.
He'll wait for you to make a mistake and consistently hit that same line.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's frustrating as a batsman.
And remember, he was the one who used to keep Virat Kohli quiet, even when it was peak Virat Kohli.
Correct.
Thank God he was an RCB.
Yeah.
But didn't
To be
play.
fair, he didn't play.
Oh,
Which is
but
worse.
before
Which is even
RCB,
worse.
He was at
with-
CSK.
Yes,
Of course.
of course.
I was well surprised they actually let him go, truth be told.
And honestly, Hazelwood's death overs in white ball cricket improved with the stint with CSK.
Correct.
Remember the Yorkers he was kneeling in before the T20 World Cup? It was phenomenal.
Correct.
So that is why it's a big loss. And if I have to see that stat, not of 51, the 36 at an average of
Yeah.
23. And why did Australia draw that series 2-2 against England in the last Ashes? We talk about Steve Smith's 774, but it was Hazelwood's metronomy that ensured England just couldn't get away.
Correct.
I mean, the way how he troubled Ben Stokes also, but it took something.
We're talking about the England Ashes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 2019,
Yeah.
2-2.
2-2.
The way how Ben Stokes coped up with it, that was his superhuman powers at that time.
I think
2019.
even now in Test cricket, he is still that player.
Yeah.
And he's a big match player. That's the thing with him. But
Bigger the moment. And remember, Ben Stokes has achieved a phenomenal record that has never been achieved in 150 years of Test cricket. Only captain to win a Test without batting, without bowling, without keeping.
ah,
Wow.
madness.
We all used to complain, right? Oh, I'm only here for fielding. Ben Stokes isn't complaining. Didn't bowl, didn't bat, didn't keep.
Sure.
Yet he won the match for them.
And by 10 wickets, no less.
Yeah. I mean, this is a different template. But then how relieved India will be when Hazelwood is not in? I mean, Shane, how relieved will India's top order be?
Very. Because again, as I said, if the one batsman who you'd expect to trouble, and truth be told, an Indian team that does lack a little bit of, let's say, I mean, look, we all know that this is a slightly weakened lineup.
Yep.
You know, you're missing a few key players. You don't have a Shreyas Iyer, you don't have a Rishabh Pant. You know, this is a lineup that is a little cobbled together. I think if Hazelwood could have gotten a couple of early breakthroughs, really would have set the cat among the pigeons.
Yeah.
And I think I would have banked on him with the new ball. As you say, that hint of movement,
Yeah.
in, out, he would be really...
Dukes, overcast. Oh,
Yeah, I mean the England conditions when it comes to the wind, oh my. Because
Look at that average of us.
Yeah, look at that average and look at the Australian bowling lineup. Even with Hazelwood gone, it's a very threatening bowling lineup, and
Exactly.
that's really going to trouble the Indian top order.
Shane, you had tweeted that, I think it was your tweet, when you said, okay, Hazelwood's out, but that Australian bowling is still very scary.
It still is, because again, I think we all overlook the kind of impact a bowler like Green can have in England.
Exactly.
Remember, during his IPL stint also, there were a couple of times when he was bowling with the new ball, and he was getting some movement. Not getting banana swing, but those hints of movement. Also,
Yeah.
that was with a white SG ball. Here you're going to be playing with a new Duke's ball.
Yep.
So, yeah, if it really comes down to it, it's not like they don't have the bowling to compensate.
Yeah, I mean, to get a little technical here, Cameron Green's a tall man, and you know his ball spends a lot of time in the air, and it's coming from a very weird angle for the bowler. So I
mean,
think
if
that's
you look
really
at
going to get it.
all the three Aussie bowlers, I mean, Stark is tall. He comes from that left
Cummins,
arm
by the
angle.
way, is underratedly tall. He doesn't look as tall as he is.
Just
He's
like
6'4",
Stuart Broad.
right?
Yeah.
Just
Wow.
like Stuart Broad. Broad is 6'5".
Yeah, he does
But he doesn't look tall.
He looks very tall.
No,
What
no.
are you saying?
When you look at him from a side, like when you think of the big strapping kind of stereotype, he's not that. He's very slender. So he probably doesn't look as tall as he is.
I think he's always looked very
I always
tall
used to
to
think he was 6'1" when I looked at him from afar.
Yeah. Jofra Archer, you could see that he's lean and like a beanpole. He's tall. But Stuart Broad, I was seeing 6'5".
Yeah.
That's madness.
Have you noticed when they, walk back from their after bowling, when you see them next to the umpire, that's when you get the realization that he's very tall, and I had that realization very.
Yeah, I don't
a lot-
actually.
a
I
long
don't
time
think I
ago.
noticed that part. Yeah.
That's the thing. I think if you're next to the umpire, this.
And also, if you compare the players, the tall players to the wickets, there's a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just before the dugout, you had said you had a very interesting take on Josh Hazelwood. What was it?
that Scott Boland, with him gone,
Okay.
it's still just as threatening that because Scott Boland would come
No,
in.
that's a fair call actually, because even I'd said that in my tweet drive. Even with Hazelwood not there, I don't feel relieved or anything. There's nothing. You know for a fact this is a very dangerous bowling lineup and in these conditions.
Yep. But again, we were talking about, for the fact that India's batters and their bowlers all have had plenty of game time.
Yeah.
Plenty of game time in the IPL. But Australia, Cummins has not played. Hazelwood played only 3 games. He's out though. Stark hasn't played. Lyon hasn't played. Boland hasn't played.
Smith and Labuschagne were playing county.
Yeah.
But then the Aussie bowlers, don't you think they will struggle with their line and lengths because they haven't had that much of game time?
I think Cummins will be the one to watch there, because again he's not played any Test cricket or any
Same
cricket.
with Stark.
No, at least Stark was still playing the other tests.
What about Lyon?
No, Lyon also no. Because after March, they didn't play anything.
Yeah.
2 months of break.
Yes.
And
That's
I think,
true.
it will be needed because you're going to play 6 tests in 7 weeks. One now and 16 June onwards, you're going to play the Ashes, 5 tests. Maybe a 2-month break is guaranteed that yes, it can be fresh for them. But then, not much of game time. As a bowler yourself, as a cricketer yourself, Gargi, lack of rhythm. Will that play a big role in Australia? Because neither of them have played more than 2 months of cricket.
Yeah, it could be because, bowling in the nets or even batting as well. Batting in the nets, playing in the nets versus playing in a match, or even if you compare it to a real match versus a match simulation, there's a lot of difference because the pressure that comes in when you're actually on the field and this is it. This is not a practice, you don't have second chances, anything could happen at this point. And in real matches, you don't have control over what the opposition does. In nets or in match simulations, you're given a target and you just have to bowl to your teammate or someone who's you've known forever, something like that. But that does affect a lot. But we're talking about international cricketers here, and they're more than used to jumping into international circuit whenever it's necessary of them. So I don't think it will be that much of a problem, but maybe day one they could use to get adjusted to the whatever the conditions are, and then they'll be fine.
They should be fine, but I would say I would add 2 things here. Number one, Hazelwood, they'll miss that line and length and accuracy because you would want to ensure runs do not flow from both ends. With Cummins, he's often gone for runs if you attack him. Stark, ever since the remodification of his action, he's not been accurate. That's the 2 problems that I'm facing at this point. Then Green untested in England. First time he's going to play in England.
Yeah.
Boland again untested because he's also going to play for the first time in England, believe it or not. So Hazelwood was the only guy who could have had that kind of. But yes, with the same case with Hazelwood, not played any kind of cricket since January.
He played 3 IPL games in which he looked like he was coming back from an injury. And you're thinking, okay, he'll use the IPL, get in a little bit of rhythm. Then he played those games, was out pretty much, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool. So he's going into the WTC with no match preparation, and now it's just a recurrence of the same injury. So I think Hazelwood's absence now might throw Australia into a bit of a panic because their bowlers are not in rhythm, their bowlers are not in full flow. Maybe at this point, India could be the favourites. With Hazelwood's absence, I'll go as far as saying that it will dent Australia big time because Shami, Siraj are at least bowling in rhythm. So is Jadeja. So is Ashwin. If you're playing 3+2, 2 pacers and 2 spinners are already in rhythm. Somewhere down the line, I don't think you're gonna drop your leading wicket taker in the World Test Championship cycle, which is Ravichandran Ashwin. I have a feeling it's gonna be 3 pacers and 2 spinners. Quite likely.
But then, you picked India as the favourites on the basis of one player not being there, but we're looking at the Australian lineup as a whole here. The bowling lineup we've talked about enough, but the batting lineup.
I will again say why, because even the Australian bowling, you asked about his classic World Test Championship or Ashes. Warner is saying, before I can even focus on Broad and Anderson, Shami and Siraj are going around in my mind. That is the impact that India's bowlers have had on them. And remember, barring Khawaja, Warner has struggled. If he fits in, he will have to come in now because you will have to have big game experience. Warner is that. Labuschagne, Smith, the batting is sorted. Green, Carey, That's about it. And you are going to play Travis Head.
Head will be
Head
the key.
will be the key.
Yeah.
But I think Warner and Head will both have to play now. Because Boland will fit in or Neser will fit in. You can't play 5 out-and-out pacers.
No, I think Head and Warner were always going to start because otherwise, if you had the opening combination, would have been what, Khwaja and Warner.
Yeah.
After that, you have Smith, Labuschagne. Then your number 5 would be Head.
Green.
Thereafter
at 6.
would be Green and
7
Carey.
carry. Yeah.
So Head and Warner were always going to start. The only doubt would have been if they chose not to go with Warner, promote Head up the,
Head
order,
up the order.
and then bring in who's there? Is it Renshaw?
Renshaw or Mitchell Marsh. One of the standbys. It'll be a very interesting conundrum. See, I think tomorrow you're going to see press conferences from the Indian and Australian teams. You'll have a big session. You're going to have a big practice session for 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. The final day, you'll have 3 hours of practice session. Only after that, we may come to know what could be the potential team combination. India are not going to do that same mistake they did in 2021, wherein they announced they're playing 11.
Yeah.
That allowed New Zealand to plan also. And it backfired spectacularly, but the best thing is, this time you have a settled team, the weather is not going to play hodgepodge with your mind. Oh, it is bright, it is sunny, I think it will be quite simple for them now. So, I have a feeling Hazelwood's absence is going to really impact Australia in a big way. The main thing is Boland, first test in England, I hope he succeeds and does well because they need Boland the bowler not just for the WTC, for the Ashes also, in case Hazelwood's fitness is delayed even further.
In case he doesn't recover.
For me, it's a big impact. Big loss. The Bendemeer bullet not been there, it's a big loss for me. So, I think India will now fancy their chances that they're one bowler that they would fear that early swing, accurate line, pressure. That I think is gone. That one factor is missing. So, Hazelwood is indeed out of the World Test Championship final and it will impact Australia in a big way. Shane, impact them in a big way, or do you think they're still intimidating?
No, they're still intimidating, but they would have been a lot more intimidating if you had Hazelwood there, let's be frank. I mean, he'll be a miss for sure. You cannot replace someone with that experience, that ability that easily. Even with Boland, why are we saying he's as close to a Hazelwood as is possible? Because Hazelwood is in a class of his own. Let's be frank.
And Gargi, before we take some questions.
Right. What was the question?
The question is, I feel that
big loss or not so big loss?
Not so big loss. I mean, of course, at one point you do think that Hazelwood, the averages that we saw, the kind of wickets that he's taken at England, but and also against India as well, 51 wickets,
51
right?
Wickets. Yep.
And you do think about that, but now you've got to move on from that loss. And Scott Boland is right there. It's an opportunity, and I think he could do just as well.
Yep, it is. So let's take some questions. Ronak Sinha is not agreeing with my assessment that Hazelwood absence will not impact Australia. And also, I am not rating Scott Boland that high. He says, I don't agree. Scott Boland is equally good in those conditions. He's echoing your thoughts, Gargi. And given the track record in Dravid's era, this could well be another wasted opportunity.
Oh, I think that's also partly the cynicism of Indian fans.
I agree with the cynicism because it's been 10 years since you have not won an ICC event. But remember, no team has ever established that era of dominance. I mean, remember, a World Test Championship, an ICC event. Every year that you're going to play an ICC event, the challenges become even more. So, no team will dominate, Ronak. That's the one point. So, it's going to be hard. And I don't see a clear-cut winner in this. 50-50 it's for me. Strictly 50-50 because India also have a good record against Australia, but they also have if you look at the last test at the Oval, they won there. So, that is why. Rishabh is like saying, out of all the bowlers, forget the pacers, Nathan Lyon is dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
And considering he'll get conditions that should give a little bit of resistance in a couple of days or 2-3 days time. Need to watch out for Gary.
Nice Gary.
Gary. And I think he showed in the conditions that in the recent BGT that I think he is the GOAT off spinner. When you talk about the Ashwin Lyon debate, I think I will rate Lyon slightly ahead of Ashwin because he's performed in all conditions.
And unfavorable conditions to spinners.
And imagine.
Sometimes he's the only spinner in the
Yep.
in the bowling lineup, and Ashwin, and he's always got this one backup to bowl
Yep.
from both ends. But Lyon has been doing it all alone.
And that too, Lyon in conditions in Australia also, he's done very, very well.
Yes.
So, all conditions, I think Lyon is the best. Ashwin in India and or in the
Untouchable.
subcontinent, much better.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Shaker from the US joins us. Hi, morning,
Hi.
Mr. Shaker. But he's not too happy with my statement that let's not get too cocky. I was not cocky. I'm cautious actually. 50-50.
We're all scared.
If he means that I should give 80% to Australia, 20% India, nah, it's an ICC final. Anything can happen. This attitude has cost us 2 knockouts. One versus an underdog West Indies in 2016, and other versus a washed out, discarded Pakistan in 2017. I mean, see, there were flaws in both those cases, Mr. Shaker. I mean, that flaw in 2016, if I look at it, West Indies, it was coming because you collapsed and you couldn't capitalize on your bowling against New Zealand. The first game itself. Kane Williamson's masterstroke, the batsman, what? Did that just happen? Then the bowling 2 no balls, unfortunately, one from Ashwin of all people and one from Hardik Pandya, ensured that you lost the game. And West Indies, remember, they were spurred on by a debate which Mark Nicholas made, which was not very favourable at all.
Yeah.
He said that they do not play with their heads well.
No.
I am mentioning in a very polite way, but that spurred the West Indies on. Remember, a spurred up West Indies can be as lethal and dangerous as
Particularly in the
And
shortest format of the game.
That Virat Kohli over did not help.
No.
We're talking about that, right? That game.
Which one?
The Virat Kohli bowled the last over, 8 runs were needed. That's
Oh,
the game,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But again, see, he had gotten a wicket of Johnson Charles.
Yeah,
And in
but
2016, Virat
well,
Kohli could do
specialist
no
bowler.
wrong.
Yeah.
Anything he touched would turn to gold. Virat Kohli did nothing wrong in 2016.
Then again, 2016 was also a year of unconventional last over bowlers. Remember
Yeah.
that Bangladesh game? He threw the ball to Hardik
Hardik
Pandya.
Pandya, yes.
And by the way, that would have been a disaster stroke had it not been for Bangladesh spectacularly shooting themselves in the foot.
Absolutely. I mean, 2 fours. Mushfiqur Rahim doing the ultimate premature celebrations. 2 of 3 with 3
yes.
wickets in hand. How could you mess that up? Trust Bangladesh to do it.
Exactly.
So Anshu Mishra is like, yes, Anshu, I even did a morning grab. I dedicated a good 2 minutes on that. That all sporting stars, cricketers, all were united in the grief to what has happened in Odisha. 3 train
It's been
derailments.
terrible. Not to waste about it.
It's absolute bedlam, and we are still numb with that shock. And remember, this is one of the biggest train disasters that in my lifetime, at least, that I've heard. I mean, there was one in 1999 that happened, which was a massive disaster. But coming from an individual that survived a train disaster, I really, really pray and I hope that the victims get all the necessary arrangements, the governments, the officials do not hassle them. We pray for those departed souls, those 288 people, 288 plus I would add, because it's really not yet, a lot of people have not been accounted for. I remember one very heartbreaking video of a father trying to search for his son. It really, really can shake you, and yes, I can sympathize with, all of us can sympathize with the loss, because even I have survived a train accident. So I very well know the pain, the fears that what they are all undergoing. So everybody of us, and I think the Indian cricket team is also planning, they'll be wearing black armbands, they'll be observing a minute of silence for the World Test Championship final when it begins, to honor, to pray for the victims of the Odisha train disaster. It's not a good time, and we in Sports Today really pray for those victims that have happened, that have unfortunately lost their lives in a train disaster in Odisha. So Mayank Tapliyal, moving on now, and Mayank Tapliyal is like saying, can there be an ODI championship in which teams gather points by playing bilateral series and top 2 teams playing final at a neutral venue? In this way, bilateral matches can be more interesting.
Man, they tried that with the Super League. It didn't work.
But again,
at all.
Mayank, I kind of, if you want a modification to the ICC Champions Trophy, which is often considered as a poor cousin of the World Cup, why not have this kind of an arrangement for the Champions Trophy? Okay, you play 2 years in the World ODI Super League, top 2 teams play a 3-game final in the Champions Trophy.
Is all I'm thinking is there enough time with all the franchise leagues in the world to bring up another ICC event?
To be fair, one of the main reasons they brought back the Champions Trophy because they wanted this new trend of being an ICC tournament every year.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the ICC trophy, the Champions Trophy, was done and discarded after 2017.
You know why? Because see, in 2013 itself, the World Test Championship could have happened. England was going to host it, but 3 problems happened. I had done a video on the journey of the ICC World Test Championship, a decade of pain. Why did that happen? England, unfortunately, in 2011, their board was in dire financial trouble. Second, India at that time were losing tests, so they were not guaranteed a qualification for the final. No India meaning no money. Second. Number 3, at that time, leagues were just fermenting, but ODI cricket was also doing well. So the ICC needed to increase the cash inflow. 2013 Champions Trophy, 2017 Champions Trophy.
Yes.
Test cricket unfortunately had to be put to the sidelines until 2019 because of the combination of financial problems in the ECB, more money from ODI and leagues, and third, India were not doing well in that.
And I think the ODI point is a very good one as well as the India one, because at that point leagues were not, let's say, the existential threat they are now to the way the game is played. At that point, it was like a good side hustle for a lot of players.
The BBL was just coming up. The Vitality Blast had not yet reached that level. The 100 was not there.
100 didn't exist.
CPL also came much later.
At that point, also another good point is that ODIs people actually had an interest in watching.
Yeah.
Now I think it's reaching a point where ODI with bilateral ODI series, there's a lot of, as you say, saturation. It's kind of overdone, and truth be told, people just don't have the time or patience to sit through 100 overs.
Exactly. Akash Bharadwaj is like asking us, who do you think India is going to miss the most? Jasprit Bumrah, Rishabh Pant or KL? For me, it is Rishabh Pant.
Me too.
I would say Shreyas Iyer. Your batting looked a lot more solid with him there.
But
especially the lower middle.
Yeah, but then Rishabh Pant had this capacity of pulling off miracles.
No, there's no wrong answer here, by the way.
Yeah, there's no.
Even with Pant, I agree. Actually, I would be feeling a lot more confident in India's chances if you had Shreyas at 5 and Pant. That would have been so much better.
I mean,
right
Rishabh Pant, simple statistics, 62 versus Australia, plus a century at the Oval.
Exactly.
Playing his favourite opponent and at the Oval and at the venue where Rishabh Pant, the superstar, was born. What would you want? But unfortunately, that's why Australia might fear Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Yes, genuinely, because those two are match winners in their own right.
Yeah.
But they are also genuinely scared of Rishabh Pant. 2020, 2021, he was the one who turned things around.
Who turned games on their head.
Sydney, they could have very well won chasing 364. And he was blazing away to 97 had he not played that catch. And Gaba, who can forget that?
Who'll never forget. Gaba ka ghavand.
Toot gaya Gaba ka ghamand. Indeed it was. So any further questions, Anurag?
Do you have any supers? No?
We had one super that was taken. And
yeah, I think.
Why is everybody talking about Messi? Because
because it's been confirmed now by PSG themselves.
Last game in Europe?
I don't know. I really don't know. I can't. In fact, I was thinking I'll do a video on that tomorrow, which will be up probably by then, and you'll know, because I think he has multiple destinations. Could go to Al Hilal,
the
Barcelona.
trend seems to be Saudi. Saudi.
Hence Al Hilal, no?
Yeah. And even Karim Benzema has been linked to that?
No, he's going to Al Ittihad.
Al Ittihad.
The one thing that's going to happen is we'll get familiar with a lot of Saudi Arabian club names who none of us had ever heard of.
You know, there is a very bad joke going about. Like, so for example, all these stars, if they come and they meet face to face in Saudi Arabia, what will be the rivalry called? Al Clasico.
Oh God.
Not Al Clasico.
I got it. It's okay. That's actually a good one.
That's not too bad. Al Clasico. So we don't know, Akash Bharadwaj, where is Messi going, but if it's Barcelona, it will be a fairy tale comeback. But I don't think the
I think it'll be the Al Hilal or Inter Miami.
Inter Miami.
To sum it up, wherever he'll go, you'll be the first to know from us.
Of course. So Ronak Sinha saying, do you think India will miss a confident keeper as both Bharat and Kishan would have been benched had KL been fit?
No, not KL, Pant. Oh wait, if you were keeping with KL in test matches, I'd be asking who lost their head.
I know. I think I'm very sorry for Ronak. KL was not going to play anyways, which is why I said India will miss Pant. Because the middle and the lower order were sorted. Pant was there, a quick fire 50 of 30 balls, opposition gone, momentum gone. So that is why. Pawan is saying, stop worrying about
No,
the
no,
team
don't read-
combination.
don't
India
read
will
that
definitely
combination.
lose. Nah, Pawan.
He's
come
being
on.
very mean.
Very,
Very
mean.
mean.
Very mean. So the advantage, Mayank Tapliyal said, the advantage of the Indian team is the experience and nerves of a WTC final last time. This will be a very crucial factor.
Valid point.
50% agree, 50% don't agree.
Yeah.
50% I agree with the fact that yeah, they have been in a World Test Championship final before. But remember, Australia in ICC finals are a different beast altogether. In 48 years of ICC events, they have lost just 2 finals.
Exactly.
75 and 96. That's it. Whenever they have reached the final, they're like the Mumbai Indians of IPL, hardly ever lost.
They hardly lose.
So that is the situation. Any other questions, Anurag?
I think we
No,
can.
we're the bottom of the chat. We're at the bottom of the
Stark versus Kohli, the battle to watch out.
Stark
Akash
versus
Bharat.
anyone, really.
I will say Kohli winning it hands down.
chat. Yeah.
Hands down against Stark. I mean, he's never been troubled by Mitchell Stark. Never. Left-handers never troubled Virat Kohli.
Left-hand
that much.
spinners on the other hand.
Spinners do. Stark, I don't think he's not been the same Mitchell Stark. That's the reason, Akash, I will say Kohli winning it hands down. So
Yeah.
we are building up to the World Test Championship final today. I did a story on India's journey as well as the playing conditions. Do check that out. What happens if it's reserve day also is done, but no winner? There is no IPL style. Oh, team that finished on top wins. Nope. Check
No,
the
they'll
video out.
share the trophy.
Yeah.
They will
Simple as.
share the trophy. So that is why it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. We are going to now take your leave, but remember,
Yes.
Formula One action is currently happening at
Yeah.
the Spanish Grand Prix, and I think Max Verstappen's leading.
Shock horror.
Oh yeah, and Lewis Hamilton
Is in
suffered a
second.
collision with.
No, but he's second
No.
right now. He's
wow.
running second.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't have to come to the pits,
No,
is it?
it was Norris who had to pit, and he's
Oh.
currently running 20th. Oops.
Oops. Okay, so Shane and Gargi will be back for the Formula One.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll have to be back for that. I mean, how many laps are done?
We're about halfway through the race because 32 laps done with
64
66.
laps.
66.
Whoa.
32 done.
Yeah.
Is that the most number of laps in the Formula One scene?
No,
No,
Monaco had 70 odd.
Yeah.
70 odd. Okay. So second most then.
I have no idea. I'll have to check that.
Check that. Okay.
But
But we hope that we get a different winner other than a Red Bull this time.
let's
but
see
doesn't
it
look
out.
like it.
Doesn't look like it. Truth be told.
Doesn't look like it. Max Verstappen. So last Rohit. Will WTC final played in other countries in next WTC? Nah.
No idea, Rohit. Really, doesn't
Look,
seem likely.
We can't tell.
2025 Lords. After that in 2027, we don't know what is going to happen. So
Anyway.
thank you so much, folks, for joining us. We'll be back with more updates from
Bye-bye.
Sports Today. Tap that bell icon, and Nikhil Vikrant sir will mostly be joining us tomorrow live, Ground Zero, England. Do check us out for that. And from me, Gargi and Shane. Bye bye.